Hello, TriDeltas. I am Mindy Tucker, TriDelta's interim CEO, and I'm so happy to be here hosting our podcast today with you. We're in for another great episode. We're going to be joined by Mignonne Gavigan, Maggie, as we're going to call her, the founder and owner of Mignonne Gavigan, an accessories company. And she started it 10 years ago in 2014. We've had a chance to get to know a little bit about her company, and I'm so excited for her to share with you today. Um, she creates jewelry in the hopes that each piece will bring joy and happiness to the wearer. I can't imagine anything more beautiful than that. I love it. And ultimately, what she discovered was women develop a sense of a significant amount of confidence when they're wearing one of her pieces. And that's so important to her and her team. So I can't wait to share a little bit more about her today and her company. She's going to share her journey as an entrepreneur, lessons she's learned along the way, and some of the inspiration around her design. So let's welcome her now. Maggie, so glad to have you with us today.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And I'm sure TriDelta is very lucky to have you in your new spot. So
Well,
yay.
I'm happy to be doing it, having a great time. The podcast is one of the things I love the most because we get to share these great stories of our sisters out there who are doing wonderful things. I want to talk a little bit first about your TriDelta journey.
Sure.
You went to Georgia, where became a TriDelta, and then you transferred to North Carolina. Talk about that journey and how you ended up at TriDelta.
Well, my mom, she's from the north, and so I had no idea what I was getting into in terms of Rush. So when I did finish Rush, after the first week at Georgia, they were like, "Congratulations, you've just finished maybe like the second or third hardest Rush in the United States or something." And I was kind of like, "Oh my gosh!" But what I found at Tridel, especially at Georgia, and then I did transfer to UNC and found very similar characteristics between the two groups of women, was just people that were kind and they were inclusive and they were supportive. Um, I had known a few women who wrote me recommendations of my mother's peers. I grew up in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I was very thankful to even be have the opportunity, I think, to be considered and then to eventually be able to become a Tri-Delta there at Georgia and then at UNC as well. So my well, I lived at the Tri-Delta House at Georgia my sophomore year, which was fantastic. It also, automatically you have this whole group of friends that want to help you succeed and make you feel comfortable. And, you go through so many transitions as a freshman at college. And I'm just so thankful that I was able to begin these friendships, these lifelong friendships with people that have even to this day continued to help me along the way. It's not just you know, a journey to when you're 25 and then you're 30 and then I mean, this every day, it's a weekly thing.
Lifelong, for sure. Yeah.
Lifelong. So then I did transfer to UNC and I lived at the Triad House there as well, where I was able to develop also a whole new set of amazingly authentic, motivating friendships of people that I mean, as well as my Georgia friendships, they're still my best friends. We still go on trips, we still meet up, they're my girl squad that, oh my gosh, this just happened, kind of thing. And so also living at the Triad House at UNC, I became really good friends with our house mom, Marilyn, and she was really supportive. And being a transfer when you're junior is not very easy. Luckily, a friend of mine, she is also a tryout. She was the first person I went with. I had some guy friends from high school who invited me to a party, and this girl just walked right up to me and was like, "Who are you? We need to be friends." Introduced me to all her friends, which were a whole bunch of trideltas. So I think it's just even talking about who those people are and what kind of people they are. It's really kindness is at the source of the qualities that I respect most about them. And then even translating that into, and I know we'll get into that later, working in fashion in New York City, kindness is not always what you run into,
Right.
especially with, people that's not their MO. And so starting a company and having that is one of the main things. It was really it was the most crucial thing for me because I had seen how not having it in a workplace made dysfunction happen. And then when you include it, everybody's on board. If somebody makes a mistake, then, you can all kind of jump in and help figure it out. It's not, every man for himself. So
I
that
love.
is a little bit about my journey there.
Yeah. So then you went to Paris
Yes.
right out of school, or tell us a little bit about how, because I know that was a big turning point for you. So tell us about the Paris transition.
So, when I transferred, I lost credits or I lost hours. So I needed to make up 15 hours and I still needed my French credits. So I took classes at the Sorbonne. So I studied abroad in Paris, which was amazing. And I was able to live with a French family, and two of my UNC friends came and they did internships. So that was very cool. I was terrible at French, to be honest. But I was in a French immersion class and then living with a French family who didn't speak English, you really start, I mean, you pick it up quickly. I'm still not very good at it, but the French immersion class, very interestingly enough, they give you a textbook, a workbook, and and it just shows pictures. And so the teacher is telling you how, it's just conversational. How do they start their day? How do you talk about breakfast? It's not just every word translated into English is how you speak. It's gestures and phrases and intonations. And so living in France was amazing. But then when I was at Georgia, they have an excellent art program. So I got into their graphic design program. And so I had taken all these fine art classes and I had a pretty large portfolio of pieces. And so, I graduated from UNC and, I'm still living in France. My friends were going to be there for another year. I was going to be there for 6 more months and they were going to be there for 6 more months too. And so I asked my mom, I was like, what do I do now? And she was like, what do you love? And I said, fashion. And she's like, okay, well, Parsons has a program there. Why don't you go over there? And so my parents, this was back in, shoot, when did I graduate? 2003, I guess,
Okay.
2004. And so, they took pictures of all my artwork. I submitted it to Parsons and I got into their AAS program. That's their applied science program, which was a huge feat for me. That was very exciting. So I was able to take, fine art classes in the opera house, sitting there sketching the foyer. And it was just
Wow.
like, I mean, it's out of this world, the coolest thing I've ever done. So, and you're building sculptures and you go to the Rodin or you go to, whatever, the Musée d'Orsay, and then, you kind of come back and figure out what you want to do. Or then you go, we had to build a chair that, 150 pound person could build with just little pieces of, cardboard. Anyway, coolest things. I actually made at Georgia, I made my first year out of toothpicks. I made a bra that I still have. So, it was in my future
Raw out of toothpicks.
to
Okay.
do so. It was kind of amazing. It was kind of like wheels. And
Yeah.
then, I was able to build them, but with wire and then like the strap. Anyway, but Paris was amazing. And so then I went straight from Paris I came home and worked at PF Chang's to make some money and moved to New York with my two girlfriends that we were in Paris together. So that was fun. And so I continued my AS program there for another year while in back in those days, you didn't get paid for I'm like back in those days, 20 years ago, we didn't get paid for internships. And so
Right. Right.
I
I
was,
remember that. Yeah.
yeah, working full time. I was an intern at Marc Jacobs, and then I also had a job at Osprey, um, uptown at Fifth Avenue, so that I could help pay my rent. And so that was a very
The
difficult time.
job so you could do your internship.
Yes.
That's how
Right.
we used to do it.
I know. Plus, I'm working in the industry that doesn't pay you very much money.
Right.
So, I ate tacos and pizza for about a year or two, or then, but anyway, then, my last semester of Parsons, I took a business and entrepreneurship class where you kind of write a business plan. I wasn't planning to do it, that next year because I needed to make money in order to survive and then, save up for that eventually. But one of my teachers, and this has stayed with me, he just said, if you ever want to have your own business, you have to do something different. It has to be very unlike what anybody else is doing so that you stand out because there's just so many businesses.
Right.
Um, So from there, I went and worked as an apparel designer. And so that was 2004. I worked there for about 3 years. And it was just this super cool collective. They all wear black. One person was he'd worked, he was the designer guy. And then another person was a branding girl. And she had been at Helmut Lang. And then another guy he was from Helmut Lang too. Um, or that's how they'd met at least. But he'd been like a, Dolce & Gabbana model, and he did our operations. And then there was this stylist who was super cool. Um, and so, I felt very just lucky to have been able to find that spot. So I worked there for 3 years, and that was an excellent, it was almost like each one of my posts was an excellent, it was almost like going to business school, but it's actual work experience,
Real world experience. Yeah.
real world experience. So I worked with them for 3 years, but I was able to see just all the inner workings of a tiny company. We put on huge fashion shows. I was able to I designed just like every day I'm sitting there sketching. It's like as many sketches as possible, and then taking them up to the sample room and working with the sample makers to make them in the sample room. So like sewing and doing the details and, rushing before the fashion shows to like make sure all the garments are done and rushing back. Anyway, I got to a point where I was like, if I don't see another fashion show, I am good. If I don't work one, I am good. It's a very glamorous thing, but it's so much work.
Super.
Um, in a flash of 2 minutes, it's over. And so that was great though. I did learn a lot, and he had been funded, personally funded, and then we went through so much money that I was able to kind of see what not to do, and to kind of build out a sales collection first, so then fast forward, I worked as a handbag designer, and then I worked as a footwear designer for Rachel Roy, and they were owned by Nine West. And so they're a huge company, and the president comes in for, a design review, and he's sitting there, and his name is Roberto, and he's like, Mignon, um, you can't have these like super fancy shoes. He's like, we need the basic peep toe pump that's, nude patent leather. That is like, that's what at that point, that's when Jessica Simpson was just, and then Tory Burch had her flat. And then Tory Burch had, I guess Joan and David had this one boot that they sold a million of. People would place a million of that one boot. So he was kind of like, where's my super basic everybody shoe? And I was kind of like, oh, so his words of advice that have also followed me through and carried me through were that it's kind of like a layered cake. And this is how we built out our core collection is our classics, and they never go on sale. They speak to everybody. They just continue to sell they're not seasonal. And then, then you have your little bit nicer, a little bit nicer, and then you have your super fun, crazy editorial pieces on the top that attract attention. Um, so for us, I had that first job. I was draping a brown white dress, and just to get an idea of beadwork on a mannequin. And there's a piece on the floor that I just tied around my neck and walked home through Soho. And because I lived in Nolita, and like 3 different people were like, where can I buy that? And I was like, ah, fantastic, because I can barely pay my rent. So I just
Let me
started
get some
making
scraps up off the floor and make you one.
it. Yeah, seriously. Well, so I was like, give me a month. And we were having all our embroidery done in India, which that's who I still continue to this day to use. They're expert craftsmen. It's generations. It's actually been men. Now it's more of a females are coming into the trade, but it's a trade passed down by men through just generations of skilled artisans. But so anyway, I just started making them, and they almost kind of sold themselves. Somebody would have one on, and then they'd be like, "Oh, how can I get one?" And then somebody else would sell one, and how can I get one? So eventually, that was 2007, and then eventually 2014. So 7 years later, I was doing trunk shows, but I needed to finance this myself, and so I didn't have I didn't quite feel comfortable enough to have the tools or to have learned, so then at that point I was working at a huge company and worked at small companies, huge companies, and I felt like I still needed a little bit more understanding of a business. since and design flows and collections. And so I took a job with Leffler Randall. Jessie is the designer, and her husband, and she run it. And she was excellent to learn from as well because she's a visionary person. Her styling's amazing, but her aesthetic is amazing. Um, and so kind of every job along the way gave me a new kind of understanding and insight into helpful ways to
Yeah.
start a business and run a business.
Yeah, it sounds like you got a tremendous education along the way from a lot of different vantage points and a lot of different people watching their success and their mistakes.
Yeah, yeah. Well, another thing that was truly amazing was um, when I was at the first job, we went to France for trade shows to Paris, and then we, inspiration shop, and I was kind of like, wait, what's this inspiration shop deal? And then we'd go to my next job, shoes. We went to Italy, we went to Florence for trade, and then Bologna is the material fair. So then we'd go, shop whatever's happening in Florence. And then back then they had a budget that was like go on an inspiration trip. So I was able to see a lot of the world, Copenhagen, Istanbul. We'd go make our shoes in China. So I'd fly into Hong Kong, be in China for a week, and then on the way back from Hong Kong, go to Beijing or Shanghai so I was able to see all go to all of the vintage shops and their, whatever flea markets or to kind of see and get an understanding of what else is out there. And so that's what each of my collections for Mignonne Gavigan is. I try and take people somewhere where maybe they haven't been. Let's, jump into when I was during COVID, I had moved basically every year. And my movers that I used twice, they were from Uzbekistan. And I was kind of like, where's that? And then I did a deep dive into what's a Suzani. It's this beautiful technique that originated there. And that we were able to work with this woman, and we still work with her, but Bibi Hanum, and she makes her own ikat fabrics. And so just like some of the most beautiful things and learning about the culture, and maybe it's more color. I take color stories from what does the land look like? What vegetation is there? What does the architecture look like? Well, like our last collection was just from Mallorca. Because I really never heard of Mallorca. And actually, this is very interesting and kind of wild. Marrakesh was on my bucket list. And so that was the inspiration for our past collection. And we went there to shoot, and it was crazy. We were there during the earthquake. So luckily we were okay. But some of the people that we were they're called riads. They were from Mallorca. So they just started talking about it. And it's almost, that's how I end up finding out whatever's next, kind of like my movers or even getting my hair cut in New York City and walking by this store. And I found, this one shop had all these, beautiful designs from, a place that I had never heard of. So it's kind of, it's like picking things up along the way and paying attention to them and then kind of diving into them
Yeah,
is
I'm learning more and getting some
yeah,
inspiration from that.
yeah,
So the scarf necklace is kind of your classic, right?
yeah,
Like that's your first product, the thing that you're probably the most well known for. But
exactly.
you've evolved a lot of things since then. You talked about some of the lines. One of the pieces I want to make sure we talk about are the chiffon pansy earrings.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
where you got your inspiration for that, and a little bit about that design.
Well, I mean, we were so excited to show it to you guys too when we first started talking, but I take a lot of inspiration from nature, what's around me. And pansies are so beautiful. I mean, the colors, all the different color stories and the gradient from, the middle of the petal to the outside. That's one of my favorite things too, so I come from an apparel background, not a traditional jewelry background. So that's why when we started with our scarf necklaces, how many scarf necklaces, is one person going to buy? So then we needed to branch out a little bit. How can we have more market share in one person's jewelry box or closet? And so I started to look outwards of what else can we make, and flowers are just, they're in your face and so beautiful. And I love to take something, if it's like a textile or a flower or a bird or a leaf, and then translate it through the magic of embroidery and beadwork, and then see what happens, and see what you can come out of it with. And I think the pansy especially has been one of our best sellers, just because first of all, it's so beautiful, but then our artisans and the craftsmanship that they use is extraordinary. Like it's organza base, and then there's another organza piece of the petal that is sewn on top, and then there's tiny micro seed beads that's also sewn on top, and then and then all the petals, they are like little sculptures because they have wire edge, and then this are serged, and so you can sculpt them so that they do sit. I know I was going to try and wear them, but I don't have a pair with me here. Um,
Yeah, I wondered what you had on today. Yeah, I said chiffon. They're organza. They are gorgeous. And we'll have
yeah.
to put a link in the information about the podcast for everybody to go take a look at them, because I know Trideltas in particular, you say the word pansy and we're all in. You know, I love that. They're beautiful. I love how you've sort of dug into that particular flower and built something beautiful out of it. So
Well, and there are so many color stories. I mean, so it's fun to kind of look and recreate, or try and, recreate a pansy. We did one a long time ago, and then the one we shared with you is our current one that's available. But even, probably in a few years, I'll try and redo it again. So, and with different materials, and maybe we'll make it glitzy, we'll see. We'll see. There's just so many options, you know? Um,
I'm curious so there's the creative side of you, but you're also running a business. What have you learned about leadership and building a team, and kind of believing in yourself and knowing what you can not only do, but also persevere through?
well, I do feel like the pillars that I have used to help me get through is a lot of the things that I think Tridelt also has as pillars for their company, which is, so there's just, first of all, be bold, be brave, be kind. Those are the three things that I feel like I've built my company on. You know, at first I was kind of like, oh my gosh, is anybody going to like this? Is it going to be succeed? Is it, how? And so, that kind of doubt is something that even, I mean, follows you around today. So it's kind of something you need to understand, process, and then work through. I think the way that I have hired people has been very important. People are very important to me, who they are, what kind of person they are, and then can they help me get to the next level, or can they help me get to um, where we needed to go, and is that something that's part of their also their goals. I would like for them, I want people to be happy. If somebody chooses that they would like to, instead of be on our sales team and go be a planner somewhere else, that is totally fine. I wish you all the luck in the world. This is a journey. It's not just a one-stop shop, and I can't make people happy. I need them to make themselves happy. um but I really put a lot of stock in um who they are, and treating them kindly, fairly, building them up, making sure they feel supported and heard. And um, it's definitely been, there's not just one way to do it. And I think what I have tried to do is stay the course. Um, it's like, just wake up and keep going, just keep putting one foot in front of each other. My CEO, she really had a hard time during COVID. And so she stepped down, and finding a new person was very hard. But then I did find somebody who's exceptional and very bright and had a fantastic attitude. And during COVID, that's what we all needed, but especially I needed that too. So it's kind of, um, and then each person along the way in their posts, I guess making them, like I said, feel as supported as possible, or, we're in this together. And even looking back to it, um, you know, all the things that I was writing down about Tri Delta, those are how I've built this. That's why I am still here. And where I do think being there's a lot that goes into marketing, that wasn't my forte, or, I had come from just design. So business strategy wasn't my forte, sales, not my forte, but, you kind of get thrust into these things and you have to learn about it. And, you're your own best advocate. So if we need sales to happen and I need to go, then I'm going, and I'll be on the road and I'll do whatever's necessary to get the job done. And for sure, don't I there's no book that you can read that kind of tells you exactly what to do and what the next steps are. So I'm always open to advice. I'm always talking to people to see other founders and other people that are running their own businesses, other designers, to figure out what are they doing, that how are they, what's successful for them right now, what's not working, and so that's a really nice network of, I think that really changed during COVID too, was um, before there was kind of you kind of weren't friends with other jewelry designers if you were a jewelry designer, but during COVID, we all kind of came together and we were utilizing the same people if we needed to use people less or pay people less because we weren't making as much money. And so we'd share people or we'd share strategies. Um, so that was a beautiful thing too. And I guess it really boils down to having the courage to try something new, and I know that's a pillar for you guys, to be brave. And if I could give one piece of advice, it would be to just keep trying, or at least try one time, put your foot out there and see what happens. It's never going to happen if you don't try, right?
Right.
Uh, and obviously, fallback plan, what does that look like? But see if it works. And so yeah, we're 10 years in. Retail's hard. So some years have been fantastic and then some years haven't. I have these wing earrings called Madeleines that I designed them probably 2, 3 years in. So we started just embroidery earrings after the scarf necklaces, and then we jumped into hardware around 20, maybe 17 or 18, maybe 20. Anyway, but hardware's been a big part of our just broadening the assortment. And then, kind of looking at too, right now we're doing a deep dive and exercise into what does the next 10 years look like? Like how much it's changed from 0 to 10, and then what does 10 to, 20 look like?
Right.
Uh, so that's been an interesting, because I mean, shoot, I don't know the answers, but let me put some stuff out there. Let's see what magic can happen.
What do you think comes next for you, for the
Well,
company?
we are designing currently, and we started. So I have a handbag background also. I did clothes, apparel, then handbags, and then shoes. And so a natural avenue for us is kind of taking our scarf necklaces and making some handbags that are super fun, great price point, um,
Fun.
and attention grabbing, emotional. We actually designed a whole beautiful collection of handbags right when COVID hit, and it just wasn't the right time to. They needed minimums, but also wasn't the right time to
I
kind of.
feel I feel like I saw several really cute handbags, clutch
Uh-huh.
handbags at convention recently. So
Okay. Did you
these
take
and
any
all kinds of
pictures
things.
of
So
inspiration?
yeah. So I think you're on the right track there. I love the idea of translating the scarf to that. That'll be fun for you.
Well, the other thing is no sizes. What can we make with no sizing?
Okay.
Um, So just because sizes are a pain in the butt to have around, to store, to warehouse, to ship. Um, and so we're, really taking a deep dive into what can we make and we've started a marketplace on our website, which has been really fun to kind of, to continue with the ethos of, our whimsy and we want people to be happy and kind of create that happiness. Like what are these emotional products that have been fun for you? We had this like this glass blower, excuse me. Um, Pierre Bowring, and he's on our website, and he's just fantastic to even get on a Zoom with, because you're kind of, I mean, he's this like
Yeah.
ultimate artist guy who's out there, but to be able to kind of share um, some emotional and some fun conversations is always exciting. So, and even when I was draping up the handbags in our office, like it's just so fun to, oh my gosh, look at this, I need this, and we're all in there kind of, everybody comes in the mornings and somebody's got some cool pair of shoes on and somebody's got some dress they just got. And so it's a fun, lively office where, we're all consumers. We're all kind of like, oh gosh, we need that. So I
Love it.
think moving forward into other categories that we're able to continue with that kind of attention need, that thing, those products that you feel like you just have to have. Um, and making sure the lift on making them isn't, that's what I was trying to say too about our handbags that we made 4 years ago. They weren't a low lift. It was a very intense design project and then production and then minimums. And so um you kind of just, you have to navigate all those things.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're doing great. I love hearing all the backstory. I wish I could get a little glimpse into every time you put a new product, the Maggie story behind it.
well,
Um,
next time you come to New York, you'll have to come to our studio office.
yeah,
A lot of magic happens there.
I would love that. I would love that. So I know people are going to want to shop after they hear
Yes.
this podcast. So where do they find you? And I think you may have a code or something for our
Yes.
listeners to shop with.
So my name is kind of hard to spell. So it's and say, but it's Mignonne Gavigan, and my mom's gonna kill me, but it's like filet mignon. Yes, the steak, but it has an extra N and E on the end, feminine. So Mignonne Gavigan is my last name. GAV as in Victor, IGAN.com. So that's our website. And then Instagram, you can find us, and it's just at Mignonne Gavigan. And you can shop Instagram also. And then our code that we have, it's T as in Tri Delta, so TD30, and it's 30% off, which is very exciting.
Wow.
Uh, it's a couple things. It's a one-time use. It's only for full priced products, and then it expires September 30th. So,
Okay. We'll put all of that information and the information about the
and then
on
we'll send you a link to the pansy
yeah.
flower necklace.
Yes.
Earrings, excuse me.
They will love that. They will love that. Well, I've so enjoyed getting to talk with you
Me
again today.
too.
We want to
Thank
stay
you so
close
much.
hear about all the developments that are going on with your company and your products, and we hope you'll come back and join us again soon.
Well, thank you again. This was such an honor and a privilege, and you're very easy to talk to, so thank you. Appreciate it.
Love it. Love it. All right. Well, thanks to Mignonne Maggie for joining
Yeah.
us today. I hope you'll go check out her website or her Instagram and follow her and do a little bit of shopping with the code TD30. We'll put that in the information so everybody has it. We hope you will like, subscribe, and rate our podcast. We have 3 stars on our crescent, but we love those 5-star ratings, so bring them on. Thanks for joining us today, and until next time, Delta Love.